In today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit weird, a bit bizarre, and a bit left of field, as I discuss trans topics in relation to 3 specific different characters across 3 different franchises. Okay, give me a second to clear this all up. So, who are we discussing is the dress lion / waitress lion from Undertale / Deltarune, Margaret from the regular show, and Otus from the Barnyard movie and Barnyard TV show.
And number 3, standing on 2 legs is only permitted when humans are nowhere in sight.
Now, on the immediate, for those who are not pretty damn online, those 3 might seem as if they don't really have a huge amount in common. I mean, these 3 different pieces of media don't have much overlap in time, in quality, or in animation style, in basically anything.
But how would you play video games?
Feed your hands!
In fact, some people right now might be wondering why I'm talking about the lion if I'm discussing trans things in Undertale / Deltarune, when there is the far more juicy topic of what is Chris's gender identity exactly to dig into there. And don't worry, when I start moving to do video games more consistently, that is absolutely going to get covered. But today isn't about a specific entry, it isn't about a specific character and their narrative, it's instead about a shared idea that is consistent and comes up very frequently with all of these examples. And that is the major trans idea of audience interpretation and fan-based headcanons that make sense of elements to transform them into something that connects to the trans community. Because there is one thing that the waitress lion, Margaret, and Otus all have in common that should be clear to those who are even somewhat familiar with what they are from, and that's that they are not confirmed trans or narratively written to be trans at all.
I am sick of feeling like a tourist around my own friends.
Alright, hopefully I've hooked you in and mildly confused you at the same time. That is, after all, what I am constantly trying to do with my intros on this channel, and based on a few comments, I think I consistently succeed to reach that oddly placed bar. And so now, let me explain myself. While these characters are not trans at all in accordance with what the creators have said about them, or what was originally intended by their insertion into the series they come from, each one does have another shared element that allows for people to read them as trans for the purpose of feeling represented by them. And it relates to their status as animals. Something that actually you may have noticed is another shared commonality, because I guess there are actually quite a few. See, the dress lion and the waitress lion are not actually confirmed to be canonically the same character. So the one that we are most focused on here is the waitress lion from Deltarune, who is a hometown NPC that stands around in the diner and is wearing a dress and referred to by the feminine clarifier for the job that she occupies. The thing that stands out with that clarification is the fact that she is clearly identifying as female, is being referred to in that way, and yet has a mane. Now, I'm sure people are going to bring up the fact that it is recorded in the wild that female lions are able to grow manes, and in fact, when they do, they start acting like males, and it's not exactly clear in many cases why it occurs, it being plausibly due to hormonal imbalances as posited by this New Scientist article, which discussed such an event occurring in a Botswana game reserve. But I want to focus here more on the fact that we as a general rule accept that male lions have a mane and female lions don't. We place them into that specific binary interpretation of their sexual dimorphism, a word that is important to know when it comes to talking about all the animals we're discussing today, it effectively meaning that within a single species, the members of different sexes exhibit different characteristics that go beyond just purely ones used in the reproduction process. But yeah, so the waitress lion is a female-identified lion who happens to be sporting a male characteristic. Which brings us to Margaret.
I know this is weird, but trust me, there's a story here.
Should I cut her feed? No.
A character who exists as a supporting person in a fair bit of the narrative, being a love interest for the main character Mordecai, who is studying journalism and ends up leaving to go and become a newswoman. Seems pretty simple so far, but remembering that sexual dimorphism theme of this video, Margaret is a character who a lot of people interpret as being a red cardinal, which then leads to people questioning her appearance because she is bright red, which is the colour of male red cardinals, while the female red cardinals are more of a yellowy beige with tints of red. Now, this one is a little bit more debatable, or a lot more debatable, because her species in the show is not actually identified by the show. So this really does become a lot of fan identification of it. And so while some fans talk about her being a red cardinal, a lot of others talk about her being a red-breasted robin. This is due to the fact that we don't know the canon, a very tricky argument because who knows what's true, but I would personally say that with the colouring and the design of Margaret, that it is far more likely that she is a cardinal over a robin, because her coloration is actually nothing like a robin when you look at it, and her head shape is more evocative of a cardinal's. But yet again, this is all in headcanon, so it gets pretty damn fucking vague. Let's get to our final character before I start getting dug into the trenches of the fandoms, with Otus from Barnyard.
Why don't you go have fun, alright? I can do this.
No way, we're homeboys.
Otus is a little bit clearer, as he is a definitively male cow who is referred to as male and dates heterosexually within the show and movie, yet he has udders, an element that generally speaking only female cows have. That's it. There isn't really much arguing or discussion to be had around that one. It is very, very clear the fact that Otus is male and yet has that female characteristic aspect to his body. So, yeah, these are our examples. And as you can see, what we are dealing with here is a lot of characters who, in accordance with the species that we are aware of them belonging to, are exhibiting elements that would be associated with the sexual group that is opposite to what they identify as within the show. And that is all the potential that the trans community online needs to really latch on and start making a big thing about it, and turn these characters into trans characters when they don't see any actual characters to identify with. And with all of these, we really have seen that be 100% true, as there is no end of people either asking the question of if these characters are trans, or people calling them canonically trans, or people writing/creating fan works that are built upon their trans status. And they're getting celebrated and connected with as if they were trans. I mean, damn, that whole connection for Deltarune between the male-dressed lion who feels distressed and then gets addressed and feels better about themselves, and the waitress lion is literally just people doing the connecting dots all by themselves. Now, I don't want to go around hyping up and congratulating the people who made these shows, because I don't necessarily think the creators for everything, except for maybe Undertale and Deltarune, probably intended for their work to be viewed in this trans light. But I do want to examine this whole phenomenon for what we can take away from it, because there is something fascinating to how a community will do so much work and feel so much for characters that were never meant to be something for them. Audiences want to see themselves reflected in their media. They want to be able to have their identity be something that they feel is represented. And for groups who have difficulty with ever seeing that occur, or who feel as if they do not receive such a level of representation, something that, despite my repertoire of trans videos, is still true for a lot of the trans community, we are often getting told to be happy with the single background trans character or one-off bit that we get, when what we really need is a vast number of different and varied trans characters on the screen to break with the monolithic outside view that people have of us, and to also ensure that everyone can feel as if they have been seen by the shows and movies and games that they consume and engage with. Well, because of that desire to have that happen in media, the audience will go digging around through text and subtext and put together these vast theories and ideas to make representation when there is none being offered to them by the media.
Dipper isn't canonically trans, or is he?
And that's because with any media, only half of it is really powered by the creative side. The other half is powered by the consumer, and that half is given as much of a voice in the medium by virtue of being able to engage in these fanon discussions and through the version of the show / movie or game that they have crafted for themselves within their own mind. It doesn't mean that anyone's version is necessarily right or wrong just because it's not canonical or confirmed by the development or production team. It's just that it does only really truly exist for that person until they present their theories and argue for them and craft a narrative around it that convinces and spreads to other people. Which is what happened with Margaret and the Lion and Otus. These theories, these ideas spread from audience to audience through predominantly the internet, and have become such known fan interpretations that they have as much weight in many circles as the real text itself. And so, in a way, you have the text, you have the subtext, and you have the fan text. And when it comes to interpreting any trans representation or transgender narratives or transgender identity in media, I find a lot of my work is done in passing between those various different ways of engaging with the themes present and figuring out what the message of them is.
You've thought about this before, haven't you?
A little.
And what name have you thought about?
Something which I have hopefully laid out here in some detail. And I wanted to bring up multiple examples here and discuss them as a whole rather than explore each one in depth themselves, because I wanted to showcase one of the methods by which trans fans or trans audiences create trans characters out of very little motivation.
This one, though, is not about if they're non-binary. It's about why.
That way in this video being when they find characters who break with traditional sex-based norms by which we know animal biology, and so present a somewhat gender-fucky version of events, which allows for someone to reason that the dressed lion is a transgender lion who wanted to be a woman, and receiving that dress was the motivating factor to come out and transition. That Margaret is a long-standing trans woman who is just accepted by all her peers for who she is. That Otus is a trans man who becomes a hero in the Barnyard and who nobody feels the need to comment on his trans status because they all just kinda know him as that.
He's perfect.
Sure, they might all be animals, but they're also people and characters and have enough of a gap to allow trans people to get in there and interpret them as trans via some weirdly thought out or poorly drawn or intentional, who knows whether that's true or not, decisions by the creative side to have their physical bodies look like the opposite sex that they are supposedly from. Anyway, that's this video. It's a bit of a shorter one because, as I mentioned, we're more exploring a concept that occurs quite a bit within trans representation in media, or at least trans representation in media as created by the audience itself. I hope that you enjoyed it, or found it to be educational, or at least to be acceptable background noise while you do whatever you actually do with your main focus. If that's true, then fantastic, that's mostly what I'm aiming for, and if you really like what I do here, then the best way to show that is by going to my Patreon and subscribing there, or my Ko-Fi, which will both be linked below. Those in the 5 drawn up category should be scrolling past the screen right now, and I am hugely appreciative to everyone on there for allowing me to continue to make these videos as I do. I don't have a job currently, apart from doing YouTube, because the New Zealand economy is...
And they were right. We're entering 2025 in another technical recession.
But with the people on my Patreon and my Ko-Fi, I'm able to keep going and not, have to move to a different country to try and get employment. Because all of this pays for stuff like my food, my rent, my power, my internet, my cat, which some people have mentioned. I don't mention enough in the video outros, and I'm worried that he might be dead. He's perfectly fine. I know he had some vet bills that were about his blockages in the bladder area, but he is totally fine. He's on the new biscuits. He's doing okay. He's currently destroying my chairs as I speak, because he hates when I do recordings and wants to interrupt them with as much noise as physically possible. And now he's bumping the camera. He's doing okay, alright? He's perfectly fine in overseeing all the work that I do. Anyway, yet again, a big thanks to everybody who subscribes to my Patreon or gives to me on Ko-Fi. I am massively, massively supported by what you do. But also a thanks to everyone who watched this video and who engages with this channel in different ways, like sharing, subscribing, commenting, or checking out my other videos. That's also all massively important to keeping a YouTube channel running, and at this point I've been doing this for a few years now, which feels kind of bizarre to say, but I'm becoming a bit of an old-timer as far as YouTube goes. God, I wonder how it must feel to do YouTube for like 10 years. Well, we'll see if I can get that far. Anyways, with all that said, once more, huge thanks to just everybody here. Big thanks out to everyone, and I hope that you all have a great day.